I, Fred, do hereby pledge the honor of the strictures of this sacred heritage of blah, and promise by my faith to be loyal to blah, maintaining my devotion against all persons without deception or forethought. Further, I vow to promote and uphold the principles of blah, and to solemnly and faithfully follow the edicts of blah. I take this pledge freely and without coercion or expectation of reward, sworn by the hand on the saintly relic of blah, and in blessed memory of those who have given their lives to this noble cause. The Paladin. Probably one of the next to the Bard, one of the most complicated, complex character classes to really pull off well. Now, these are guidebooks that were created back in the 90s for 2.0, and I've seen variants of these for 3.5, and I would assume that given enough time, they would have come out with them for 4.0 and 5.0 if they haven't yet already. And it's easy for them to do that because all the material is already there, and all they're going to do is tweak it and change it just a hair, maybe put some different artwork in there, and then produce basically the same book. Okay, so if I were to buy those versions, I'd have 3 sets of these pretty much saying the same thing. Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do that. Not when these things are quite adaptable to any game system we got. And this carries over to pretty much any game system. The basic tenets and rules of these things are applicable whether you're playing Star Wars, Star Trek, Dungeons and Dragons, or Pathfinder. You can argue it all you want. I'll give it to you. But it is what it is. Now, like I said, next to the Bard, one of the most complicated classes to play. The reason behind that is because a lot of people have a misconception of paladins, and they have it in their head how a paladin should act, and they rarely act that way. The players at some point get bored with taking that chivalrous high and mighty tone and the purity level that the paladins are supposed to represent, and downplay it into something that's no longer really a paladin. And it becomes, if you're okay with it, you're a GM, and the rest of the players are ignoring it, then okay, it's no big deal. I get a little cheesy about it sometimes because I like to see purity, and I'm the purist. I want to see the characters played with their respective classes in a manner that's both entertaining but true to what they chose. If you choose to be a certain alignment, then by God, act like that alignment. If you choose this and you start to act like this, I'm going to morph you into that because that's more true to what your character is. And the same with the Paladin. Well, in the past, you didn't have a lot of options. It was either Paladin, Priest, or Fighter. And what is a Paladin? Paladin is a combination of the mounted fighter and the lay priest. And the reason I say that is because the paladin does not gain all the priestly spells and abilities that the priests get, who spend most of their time more time devoted to their particular god and pursuing the arcane divine version of their will, and where the paladin is more about the fieldy being the warrior, the soldier, and upholding his tenets. Now, far too many people make the crossover between the medieval knight and the paladin, and my friends, they are not in the same category. I mean, the fact is, you can look. That's one of the things that I like about the Game of Thrones, because Martin did a damn good job of showing just how non-chivalrous and valiant the knights really were. They were men, a lot of times highborn or well off, and yet they were still men, and they were men of war and men of combat. And you do a lot of horrific things in war and combat, and it gets to you, it ekes into you after a while. The paladin is the rare exception to that. This is one of those guys who took a sworn oath. He's obsessed by it. He does, in the Game of Thrones, if you're familiar with it, Brienne's probably the closest character I've seen that comes in that realm that comes to what a paladin would be, and except she didn't swear to uphold some god. Now there's some that I don't know, the sparrows or whatever, but to me it's not the same. The guidebook here gives you a lot of good information on how the lifestyle and how the morals and how to portray play out this Paladin character. Uh, Good stuff to know if you want to really be true to the character class. But it also gives us a lot of variations on the Paladin. And the reason that I say that is because what happens, most players, just like the Bard, they don't get what a Paladin is and how two-dimensional this character class can be if you play it right. And so, in this case, I've seen guys be a lot more cavalier than the Paladin. And fortunately, I can pull, at that some point, I'll say, you know what, Joe, he's not a Paladin. You're just not playing him as a Paladin. He's not. Well, no, you're not. This is how come. You're playing him like a Cavalier. Fortunately, this book comes up with that. You actually have a bunch of subclasses that fit the nature of the particular person or their style of play. And so you don't have to eliminate the Paladin per se, except more like morph him over and have him follow the different set of rules a little bit. The true Paladin, the Cavalier, the Divinate, Envoy, Errant, Ghost Hunter, Inquisitor, Magician, Militarist, Skyrider, Squire, Voltairy, Wormslayer, what have you. In this day, they called them kits, Paladin kits. I call them subclasses for what they are. It's good information because it's one of the things I picked up on these books when they first started coming out was the expanded variety of a given class, and I like that. I like the ability to tweak my characters better because a lot of times my characters when I was playing never quite fit the mold, and in this case, it gives you opportunities to modify the mold, and having a base set of rules makes it simpler to do. And in addition to that, it talks about the lifestyle and how other people, viewed paladins and what expectations can be considered, or you know, uh, they've also expanded some of the skill sets to give you some additional things you wouldn't consider. A true knight is not just a warrior, but he's going to be a poet or an artist, or maybe he's into jousting. That's a skill or a feat if you want to go that route. Bureaucracy. Most paladins also end up becoming involved in court politics. Whether they intentionally do so or not, you can't help it. Well, now I think about it, probably the most poignant example of a paladin-like character in any book that I've read and that I can recall off the top of my head. It's got to be Mandolin, if I'm pronouncing it right. Mandolin of the Belgariad. The Belgariad's an awesome series, and it takes a minute to get into it, and it's a long one, but it's an awesome series. And if you ever get an opportunity to read that series, knock yourself out. You would not be disappointed in it. At least I don't think so. Um, Then it goes on to talk about things like holy swords, animal barding, animals themselves, the mount, their connections, descriptions of encouraging morality, the routine, enforcing laws, courtly duties, military duties, tournaments, a day in the life of economics, what happens when your paladin is forced to become a mercenary, that kind of thing. Uh, Privileged relationships, you know, secularism, alternates to churches, renouncing fealty, awesome stuff. Great artwork to go with it. Like I said, this is a good book to have if you have it on your shelf. If you're a guy or a gal who wants to play a paladin, this is almost a must-have. It's the Bible, if you will, for being a paladin and how to play it well. And I would consider this an excellent item to any library, any GM's toolbox. And if you get your hands on one on a second-hand basis, take the opportunity to at least leaf through it. You might not like it. You might want it. If you can get one of the newer versions, go ahead. I mean, it's like I said, for the most part, it's the same book. It's just got a few tweaks to the more modern variant of the game. Uh, if you find anything of what I've been saying useful or helpful, if you enjoy these blogs, which I'm not the most colorful personality out there, nor am I the most oratorial. My oratory sucks, and I know it. It's a little getting better, but I'm not perfect. I'm just the average Joe fat man GM. And but if you like it, thumb it. Say you like it. Tell your friends. Say, hey, go look at this crazy guy. He's got some good information. If not, have yourself a good day and enjoy.